A big piece of the internal part of moving forward is gratitude. And I pre-taped, now we just had Thanksgiving last week, and I pre-taped an interview on the spirit of gratitude with geraldauger. He's Native American. It's essential for us actually to stay centered, connected, and be prepared for what's to come in terms of how to deal with that. So let's have a listen to what he suggests.
Ahaw, nista, mamakhtawin ako simantu. Niga nanas ko mo, minigitag piyawiya, kumay siyas kimatsu mo, tiyo, nanas kumtin. So I want to thank and honor Creator first and foremost before we started our discussion this evening. Nicolette and I spoke in my Woodland Cree language because that's the language that was given to me by my Creator, and I always need to honor that part of my human being. So I honor you, sister. So.
Yeah, I love that language. It sounds so melodical. It's actually really gorgeous. It does come across. Gerald, I want to talk about the spirit of gratitude. You know, we just had Thanksgiving, and there's a lot of different interpretations of Thanksgiving. So I don't want to talk about it in the traditional sense of how it is often understood with the pilgrims coming here and things like that, but on the deeper meaning of giving thanks in the terms of gratitude and what it is, because it's so deeply important for everything we do. So let me ask you, what does gratitude mean to you?
Well, thank you, Nicolette. Well, for me, gratitude is what I did when we started this, is honoring and thanking the Creator for loaning me yet another day in this world. And for us as four-directional people, we give thanks for every day that we are loaned in this physical world. We give thanks for everything that sustains our human being, our emotional, our mental, our physical, and our spiritual. And that, so for us, gratitude is, we are taught gratitude as we are raised, always to be grateful for the little things and to be grateful for our parents, for life, for family, for community. And because when you can live in gratitude, then, and in gratitude for your fellow human being and for creation, you know, life takes a whole different meaning. And so that's for me is what gratitude is for me, is Creator. Because without my Creator, I wouldn't be sitting here, and I wouldn't be doing the work that I do for my Creator. But yeah, in a nutshell, for me, when I hear gratitude, first thing that comes to mind is Creator, si mantu in my language.
So do you think most people understand or have a good idea of what it means to be grateful? It sounds like such a good word, but what is the actual underlying connotation?
You know, Nicolette, when we were supposed to do this a couple of days ago and then life got in the way for that, and here we are, I actually spent the morning going for a walk, and I just wanting to ask random people, what is gratitude to you? I asked the homeless man that I see every day out by the grocery store, and I asked a friend who was his birthday, and I asked him, what is gratitude to you, it being your birthday? And unfortunately, you know what, Nicolette, even the other people I've asked, even that I was talking during the day, they couldn't really understand what that meant. They didn't know. Well, gratitude is being grateful, is giving thanks. Yeah, well, that's the version that's in the dictionary.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk a little bit about, because it says giving thanks. So most people would think having gratitude means being thankful for what we have. But I think, to me, there is more to it. To me, when I think about gratitude, for example, there is also abundance. So when we think about, to me, Thanksgiving, for example, is about abundance. It's about the food that we're given. It's about the harvest that we're given. It's about the sun, the wind, the stars, the moon, all the things. So there is a feeling to it. How do Native American Indians see that?
Well, see, and for us, when we give thanks, we have to speak it into existence, as do other fellow human beings.
In what way? What does that mean?
Meaning that when people see, well, gratitude, they've been conditioned to think, well, it's a word. But for us, it's more than a word. There's a spirit behind that word that we call gratitude. In my language, is nanaskumun in my language, and there's a spirit behind that word. It's not just a word that's written, and that it's actually there's a spirit behind that. That's why we are taught by our elders, and the ancestors shared this all the time in ceremony, is that like words are like medicine. If you speak good things will come. If you speak bad things will come. And we have to be very mindful about what we say and how we say it, right? So for us, when we see gratitude, we don't see the word. For those of us who understand it, live it, we understand that there's a spirit behind that, and that it's not just a word. Because if it was just a word, then it would just fall to the ground as soon as we spoke the word, because it had no weight. And that's what the elders have told me before. If you're going to talk to the people, come from a place of love, kindness, compassion, and honesty and the truth.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to shift the people and make them understand. Because it's a spirit listening to a spirit. First and foremost, when we converse with a fellow human being. But because the world has forgotten spirit, the world has forgotten creator, the world has forgotten gratitude, humility, love, and everything else that comes with that in life. When a human being talks to another human being, they don't even see the spirit of that human being. They just see a human being because they have missed and lost that connection to spirit, right? So.
Yeah, but this is actually something one can see very poignantly, I think, if you've ever watched someone die on the deathbed, or even when you watched an animal die. I think you can see that at that moment you recognize that it was the spirit you were talking to all the time, the spirit that was present. And afterwards it's very different, because it's really just a shell. So when you talked about gratitude and you say like there is so much more that goes with it than just the word, does that automatically embed creativity for Native American Indians? So in terms of you as a creative being speaking into existence all that there is, so more of source basically that you're using?
Yeah, for me, when we first had this conversation a week ago, when I said and I've looked at that about gratitude, right? For me, understanding the true essence of gratitude is having gratitude for what you don't have in your life and still being thankful that you don't have it. Like, we all need something in our life that'll complete us emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. But there are times we don't have that in our life yet because we haven't attained a certain level of understanding what it is we've asked from our Creator. And you have to do your 50% to attain what you've asked from your higher power. And when you can find, and I've learned that the 6 years in the wilderness, I had to understand that I wanted certain things in my life, a companion, a partner, health, healing, but I had to work towards it. And it was after when I realized I had to be thankful because I didn't have what I needed from my Creator first, but still having gratitude for that. Then I understood what gratitude really means, right? So.
Now, is there a way to connect this giving thanks, gratitude in general, and abundance to reconnect with Mother Nature and Earth?
When I was working with the energy industry here, and I still do to a certain extent, I would actually take these presidents and these CEOs of these energy companies, and they would go sit on the land and surrender all food, all water, all comfort, to suffer for 2 days, 4 days, no food, no water. And I wanted them to understand, when we talk as the stewards of Mother Earth, of honoring Mother Earth, the element of water, air, and fire, you can't understand what that means until you surrender everything that gives you comfort in this world, from Mother Earth, from the air that you breathe, from the heat that keeps you warm, to the water that you drink. Then they got to really understand what gratitude means, because for us as spiritual people, when we want to understand the deeper meaning to life and really what life can be all about, we have to suffer for that. And when you suffer for that, then you earn it for what it is, you respect it, and then you have a true sense of gratitude. For me, when I was living in my misspent youth, because I went through emotional, mental, physical, sexual abuse because of residential school, because of colonization, I went down the wrong road for a number of years. And now I realize I had to do that to understand gratitude in a different way at the same time. But then when I was on the street and I would have nothing to eat for days or have anything to drink, and I would have these Kodak moments where I'm actually pouring, I was able to get a cup of coffee. And then as I'm mixing the creamer into the coffee and I'm looking at that, I would have this Kodak moment and say, my God, how thankful am I for this cup of coffee? Because I really understood it for what it was, right?
Yeah. Take us for a moment through the principle of surrender, because I think that's a very profound theme that goes along with gratitude. Now, when we're in a desert or so and you don't have enough food, so to speak, you have to worry about, what's going to come at you during the day. You have to worry about water. You have to worry about food. It's easier, I think, to understand to surrender, which also, by the way, could be in a way understood for the traditional way of how the pilgrims felt when they came here after having surrendered to the journey and finally sort of make land, not knowing what's to be there, what's to be expected and things like that. But take us a moment through what it means to surrender something or to something.
Well, unfortunately, the world is living that right now in terms of what's going on in the world. For me, when I understand surrender, you have to first surrender to really understand what surrender means, right? There's more levels to it. It's not just one definition of what surrender is. There's multiple layers of it. Just like there's multiple layers and stages of gratitude, just like grief, just like happiness, just like love, all of that, right? So for me, understanding surrender is when I sit and do my conversations and interviews with you, I sit and I ask and I say, Creator, I surrender to you to speak through me, to speak on your behalf. And I ask my ancestors to speak through me, because at the end of the day, I've come to understand that this is not me who's doing it. I'm doing this on behalf of my Creator. And I have to surrender my ego. But you can never understand surrender until you're prepared to surrender to your ego first and put your ego over here and then put the Creator here. Then you will understand what surrender, then you'll start to begin to understand what surrender means, right? Because other than that, if you don't do that, then you're just pulling a word from the dictionary and that says surrender. You have to live it to understand it. And that's what I've learned about the healing that I've had to do for myself and the work that I do and what I see. That's why when I say the world is living to understand, to reconnect with the Creator, to understand how truly pitiful we've become as a human species. Natural law is visiting the world, unfortunately, because the world has forgotten that. So yeah, and that's what the elders say. If you want to ever understand life and the different aspects of life, you have to live it to understand it. Just like when your heart gets broken, then you come to understand what a broken heart really means. But just like when you understand gratitude and have happiness, then you understand really what happiness means, because you're living it. So when you can live it, then you will understand it. And that's when I say, for me, when I talk about gratitude, you have to live it to understand it.
I actually find that pretty profound also when you look at what's going on in the world right now. When you look at, COVID as the disease has really sort of got the world to a standstill. And most people are kind of in the blind. No one really knows sort of the way out yet. Is there also a surrender point for us, so that we actually surrender and go with the flow and learn and respect the universe better and nature better and reconnect with the spirit?
And that's a part of what the elders and the ancestors talk about, what you just said, Nicolette. The reason why we're going, like, it's a revolving door with what's going on right now in the world, with all this chaos, this confusion, this mayhem, destruction that's happening. Because the world is not paying attention, is not understanding what the universe is trying to say, what the Creator is trying to say, what Mother Earth is trying to say, right? So, and there are people, places, and things, from government to corporations to other entities and organizations, who are playing with people's lives at this stage in life. And that is why the elders say, if you are going to be a leader of the people, you have to be very mindful and very careful of the decisions that you make and the words that you speak to the people. If you're going to represent the people and you break Creator's law, you break natural law, spiritual law, the laws of nature, whatever that may be, it's the people that are going to pay for that. It's not you. It'll be, as a leader, it won't be you. It'll be the people you serve are the ones who are going to pay for that. That's what we know and understand as natural law, as four-directional people. And that, so there are institutions who are collapsing as we speak. Religious institutions, faith-based, different institutions are collapsing right now because they have lost that connection to their higher power, to the authentic higher power. You can't tell the world about God and say, God bless, and come from a place and turn around and hurt your fellow human being. That's not Creator's law, right?
Yeah.
So that's a part of it.
Yeah. Because I think that also highlights actually the meaning of disease in general. You know, here, particularly in the United States, very often we see disease absolutely as the enemy of everything and sort of as the worst thing. But we very often do not understand that disease is also a healing process. So if you look at the world or society as a living organism, so to speak, we come to understand that when there is a disease, obviously something is out of balance, so things aren't working right. So a healing process kicks into place. Yeah. That's why I really wanted to have this episode on gratitude, because I think there are two factors that are so important for us going forward, particularly for the coming months, which is one is gratitude, to really understand the spirit of gratitude in the sense of abundance, in the sense of having and not having sort of go hand in hand. So as you had explained before, if you haven't had a broken heart, it's kind of hard to understand what that is, or also the opposite of happiness, what that would mean. Or if you haven't been sick, it's hard to understand, you know, the healthy part. So very often, actually always in life, you have to go through the opposite to get to the other side. So I think so, and the other part is the surrender part, because I think with all that's going on, I think we need to talk about how do we sort of maneuver all of this and get through that without drowning and getting lost. And I thought when we had Thanksgiving, particularly last week, it would be really a great moment to remember that this is not just a pilgrim's festival or arrival, but there is a much deeper meaning to it if we choose to make it so. Do you see this differently?
I see it differently in a sense for my people. When it comes, unfortunately, there are when they celebrate Thanksgiving, for us, that's not what that is, because we lost our land, our way of life, our beliefs, our values were stripped from us because of that. So how can the world say, well, I want to give thanks for the land when it was taken from a people, when people were, children and women were murdered, their lives were taken for that land, for who they were. So for me, I just like the brothers the 6 million in Auschwitz and all of that. Everything that's happened is, how can the world find gratitude in
in that.
when they've broken creator's law, when they've broken natural law, when they've broken all of that. So for us, we don't see it. We can't give thanks for that.
Yeah, no, yeah, but that's when you see it as an event. So my question is, though, how can we today transform that into something that really shifts towards the meaning of giving thanks in terms of gratitude for in a larger sense. So for Mother Earth, for the water, for the air, for clean air, for food, for the animals. How can we transform it? Can you see a way of doing that? And then what would it take for us to get there?
Well, you know what, a beautiful thing about what's going on in the world right now, the world is waking up to understanding we have to start thinking in a different way and taking life, a different approach to life. Here in Canada, we had 215 children that were discovered in unmarked graves in a residential school that the U.S. used to have, the same thing what they call boarding school. But I have my non-Indigenous, my Western brothers and sisters were coming to me and saying, Gerald, I am so sorry what happened to those children. I am so ashamed of being a white person because of what happened to these children. What can I do to change that? And I'd say, you've just done it. You, by reaching out and saying, Gerald, I am so sorry for what happened to these children and what my ancestors have done. How can I change that? And I said, you've done it just now by reaching out, because it made you realize and what happened to these children and that. But now what you can do to change that is what you've just done, is learn more about the history, the true history of what happened on Turtle Island. And that since 1492, since everything else that's happened in this world. That's how we change as a human family, as a human species. Then you can start beginning to understand what gratitude really looks like. For me, growing up the way that I did because of colonization, because of residential school, I buried a lot of friends, members of the community, cousins, family, because of that. But when I sat in these wakes that we had for the ones who have moved on, I came to understand the beautiful thing that death had given me in understanding gratitude was that life is truly sacred. And then having to bury people that I knew that were close to me as well, and sitting there and realizing, reflecting on their life, and I came to understand gratitude, I guess, in a different way as well. Being appreciative of what I have in my life, and that I'm still here, right? So when you can live in gratitude moment to moment, every moment becomes an eternity, right? So
I want to get back to what you just said about the school children, Gerald, and how it's connected to gratitude. When you said your white brothers had reached out and they had apologized for what their ancestors had done and what had happened, and in that moment, you felt also gratitude. So it seems to me with gratitude, if we take it to a deeper level, there's also a sense of acknowledgement and truly feeling sorry or apologizing to it, but then also a forgiveness component.
Then doing something about it then you're actually living in gratitude, right? You're actually appreciating gratitude by doing something about it. And the thing about the pandemic, if the pandemic hadn't happened, they wouldn't have found those 215 children. It just happened that way, and I stopped in and seen that residential school in Kamloops, and I asked the head of security, he said, well, how did this happen? How did you guys come across these 215? And the head of security said to me, well, if the pandemic hadn't happened, we wouldn't have found out. We had gotten funds to do some cultural programming for the nation. But then pandemic came, and then we had to shut everything down, and we couldn't spend, and we had to spend that money that was given to us. So we decided to get ground penetrating radar and see what happened, and that's how it happened. So in that sense, I said, wow, that's gratitude in a different way, because then that's when the world became to realize that, because there were people who were saying then, well, these residential schools never happened. They never happened. And when I asked this head of security, so what was your one takeaway from all of this? I said, because he was a survivor of residential school. And he said, I'm glad now because all the people who were saying, well, residential schools didn't happen, it became real and they had to accept it. And that's how the healing can start to begin coming together, is when people start understanding each other, taking time to listen to each other and to work together and to heal together, right? So that's gratitude in its own, in a different way as well, right? That's what I'm saying. Gratitude has just more than one meaning and comes in different forms. So.
Yes, it does. Now, fast forward, Gerald. Could you see, for example, when we're at a point in where we're transforming the idea of gratitude, the idea of giving thanks, and taking it forward and spinning it really more towards abundance for everyone, so the planet, the Earth, Mother Earth particularly, that we could possibly someday sort of have a celebration that actually would be applicable for everyone in terms of the deeper sense of gratitude?
The beautiful thing of what you just said, that's already happening, Nicolette. I work with a group called the Benevolent Artists National Charity Bank. And these are all artists who had very long, successful careers. And they give up themselves and their time to raise funds for charity, so others can heal from. We have worked with organizations working with human trafficking, women leaving sexual exploitation, missing and murdered Indigenous women. So to me, that's what the world needs. The world needs more of that. These artists don't have to do what they did, but they do it because they want to do it, because they have gratitude in their hearts, wanting to be there for their fellow human being because they see where the world is going. Yep. And the beautiful thing about what's going on in the world right now, one of our ancestors had said, the people would sleep for 100 years. And when they awake, it'll be the artists who will give them back their spirit. So these artists that I'm working with, that's why I stepped in to help work with them, because it was a prophecy was happening. And I need to be a part of that. So it's already happening in different ways, right? So
and that's a great way actually to connect, because through arts you reach the emotional level, and there's no talk, there's just this understanding on emotional level, and it gets you right there. It's a great way of getting together. So maybe we need to start thinking about a different festival going forward and really come up with an idea of having more giving thanks in a way of celebrating together, having music together, having more celebrations in the sense of coming together as a spirit, or the spirit of one.
Yes, and unfortunately people have left this planet because of the pandemic, right? But then for us, what goes up, something must come down, right? And how is a balance, right? But for us, when we talk about prophecy of what's going on with this great awakening and the pandemic being a part of it, is we have entered the age of Aquarius. And the age of Aquarius is about frequency, it's about vibration. And that's who these artists are, from the musicians to the storytellers to the visual artists themselves, the artists of all in different forms. But then it's when this pandemic happened, the world had to slow down and pay attention. And I've known artists who have said that this has shape-shifted them, and they only want to be a part of projects that speak to them in here and is there to make the world a better place. It's not about just making financial gain now. For them, it's about wanting to be more, wanting to give back more and not expect anything in return, right? So this pandemic is teaching the people gratitude for those who choose to open their minds and their hearts to what's really going. But unfortunately, just like everything else in life, there will be those who will not get it, who will never wake up, and that's unfortunately their role and responsibility of being born into this world at this time.
That also comes with freedom of choice.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where free will.
That's where free will plays in. Exactly. So, Gerald, final word, because we're almost out of time. A final word in terms of thinking of gratitude going forward for the next few months to come, because I think they're going to be very, very interesting months. What would you advise viewers and people to reconnect and really have this principle of gratitude within them on a day-to-day basis?
I think I would tell my fellow human being that the Creator loved you enough to grant you free will. You are free to make choices, but you're not free from the consequences. The Creator knows your true intentions behind your intentions, just like the Creator knows your reaction before your action in life. And you can lie to yourself, to your fellow human being, but you can't lie to the Creator. The Creator knows your reaction before your action. Creator never sleeps, Spirit never sleeps. And if you want to live and leave behind a world of love, kindness, compassion for your children and their children's children, then take the time to understand and live in gratitude. Embrace the spirit of that gratitude. And that, because when you can do that, then you're showing your higher power that you are truly living with the spirit of gratitude, and only good things can come from that.